And welcome back to the Heart of Chaos. I'm Javier once again, and I welcome you back to The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. In the last episode, we made our way over to the Laneru Sansi, utilizing our new claw shots. And in this episode, we're going to explore the Laneru Sansi. And we're going to have a bit of a story while we do it. There's a save bird over here if you need it, but I do not for now. You might notice that there's one of those bots over here. Not gonna say anything, he is quite dead, but there is a time shift stone right over here. Let's go ahead and hit it. Hit it. Let's go. Alright, let's go. So we've just met Skipper, and I'm going to show you why this area is so cool, and why it's my favorite area to have explored. My circuits spark to life in the salt air. It feels good to take to the seas again after so long. But let's see if I can remember how to navigate. Alright, you just have to move the control stick to move, press A while moving to speed up, press B to ready the cannon, and A to fire it. So we got more motion controls we're going to have to use. He placed an X over the mark on the island where his house is, and that's definitely where we have to go first. There's a pier on the island where we can dock. Alright. Right, let's go. So, we now have a boat that we can move as we travel along the seas. We're bringing everything around us back to life. You can see that the sand, there was once a vast ocean here, and it's so pretty. All the life underneath, and yes, there will be enemies that will come to life that we will have to, well, we really can't avoid them. So that'll be something we'll have to look out for. But I mean, just this area is so beautiful. You can sprint, by the way. Just holding A, not just pressing it, gives you the ability to use the ship's own stamina meter, but there's nothing we can really do to avoid that. Anyway, we can now get out over in this area so that we can go and find that proper sea chart to explore more of the ocean. Skipper's Retreat. We've arrived. Weep! My shack is at the very top. The sea chart we need is in my shack, but you're the one who will have to get it. There are more monsters about than before, so be careful. I can't wander far from the boat, so I'll just stay here. See, it doesn't appear that many of them, understand that they'll die if they get away from this time shift stone, or they'll be, incapacitated. But he seems to understand it, which is a little, dark. honestly. It's like, he knows he'll die. He's subjected to one small area of the ship, which I imagine is why he wants to get to the sand ship, because that's, you know, where he'll be able to survive and protect the ship like he was supposed to. And if we come up here, you'll notice that there are these zip lines. This is going to be how we're going to get back down, but we can't do anything with them right now. So we're going to be making our way up to the top of the sand, this entire retreat. And while we do so, I'm going to tell the story I promised in the last episode. How The Legend of Zelda influenced me as a gamer and a person. And why I call it my favorite series ever created, for, you know, very many reasons, sentimental and otherwise. So, I feel that the Legend of Zelda franchise has evolved with me as a person. I was born in 1995, and you know, obviously you're not a gamer when you're little. When I was 2 years old, my first game I ever played was, you know, The Lion King for the Sega Genesis, which is a very odd title to be mentioning as my first, but then there it is, nonetheless. Now, when I was 3 years old, in 1998, my dad came home with a copy of Ocarina of Time with a new Nintendo 64. He was super excited to see a Zelda game in 3D, because he was never really infatuated with the older ones. In fact, my mother's area of expertise was in the 2D Zelda games, because my mother is blind in one eye and has a very hard time seeing 3D visuals, but with 2D she was actually quite fond of the idea. So when it came down to Ocarina of Time, I was only 3 years old, but I was super excited to see it because the way he described it, it just sounded like a time of adventure. Which, you know, that's what it was. It's an adventure. So throughout that entire year, whenever my dad would have breaks from work or anything, and the entire family was together, we would all gather around, and I would sit on his lap or on my mother's lap or just by the side, and we'd play Ocarina of Time together. My job back then would have been to memorize the songs, because my dad didn't have a very good memory, and you know, when it was considered my job as a younger kid, I felt super excited to be able to help, since I wasn't that, you know, great with my hands just yet. He would actually even hand me the controller to play the songs, which was a huge part. When we finally beat Ocarina of Time, my dad had, you know, enjoyed that game, and he considers it one of the most fun things he ever did. I lost those bugs. And that was when he had gotten a PlayStation, because he had heard of some games that were really interesting on the PlayStation. And to me, he entrusted his Nintendo 64 with Pokemon Stadium and Majora's Mask in 2000. I had played a lot of Ocarina of Time, and by the time I had played Majora's Mask, I had learned about friendship, because back when I was little, I was actually rather isolated. Ow. I was actually rather isolated. I had gone to a private school with 3 people in my entire grade for the longest time. Sure, there were kids that were younger with us, but that's the problem. We were the oldest ones. And that just, you know, it got in the way sometimes of having friends and stuff like that. But I always had, you know, my video games to turn to. Ow. So that was always something that I really enjoyed. I apologize that I kind of trailed off. That guy was a little annoying. But yeah, Majora's Mask taught me about friendship, and that things aren't, you know, always what they seem. People have their problems, and you can help by being patient and understanding them, and just overall being a good person. Ocarina of Time had taught me that there was limitless adventure to be found, and that there was always possibilities, things to see, things to do. It opened my eyes. But that's only 2 Zelda games, and the most notable ones for the Nintendo 64. There are many other Zelda titles, and all of them have played an impact as I've grown up. In 2003, we got The Wind Waker over here in the United States. North America, I guess, really. And it's with that... Oh my god, don't whip him. Don't whip him. Motion control sometimes. And what that had taught me was that, you know, there was a big world and you're not expected to see all of it. At least, not realistically. You know, you could see, it takes a very long time to explore and see all of it. And it also taught me about tolerance in a way. Because when I was younger, I can't say I was internet savvy at the time, but I was constantly, whenever I got my hands on a computer, looking at Wind Waker stuff, and I had seen people who were complaining a lot, you know? They were not happy by what, you know, the Wind Waker was turning into. It was a cartoony game, especially after seeing the tech demo for the GameCube, which I allegedly did not see the Space World trailer till much, much later. Now, after having played the Wind Waker, and no, I had never beaten the Wind Waker when I was little. I actually got quite stuck with the Wind Waker when it came to the Triforce quest when I was little, and I didn't rely on the internet ever for anything. Even now, I very rarely rely on the internet to do those kind of things. Anyway, let's go ahead and cut view down so I can actually get up there. 2006 came along, and in 2004 I was extremely excited because I saw the trailer for Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess was looking like the sequel to Ocarina of Time that people always wanted. And I was at about that time turning 10 when Twilight Princess got announced. Ow. What a jerk. Alright. There, he's dead. I apologize, I died on the commentary. I had to focus on those guys because swapping items and telling a story is rather difficult. Now, when it comes to... I'm sorry, where was I? Okay, yeah. Twilight Princess had come out, and it taught me that, you know, you can always find friends in the most unexpected of places. And, you know, it taught me to be patient. And, you know, that not everything is as it seems. And the world is also a much darker place. I was growing older at that point. Not everything was bright and colorful and cheery. In fact, many things were much darker than they seemed. I was growing older. I was just about to be a teenager. I was a preteen at that point, and probably going through the same dramas that many other teenagers have gone through. So it was at that point that I understood a lot more of the darker tones that they were trying to give off. Hang on. There is... Isn't there? What is the... Grr. I hate doing this. I always come up here. Always. And we're not supposed to really come up here. If I'm remembering even the slightest correctly. We can just walk inside. Right, okay. So, Twilight Princess has taught me that, you know, the world isn't as bright and colorful as you may think. Alright, so now that we've entered this area, we're going to have to deal with a few more Ericas, and we're going to have to use the Gust Bellows to get rid of all of the sand in here to find the sea chart. So, let's go ahead and do just that. So, as we're going through this, I will continue my story. Now, about the time Twilight Princess had come out, I was not really all that into, or have really known about the fact that there were a ton of 2D Zelda games. I had my handhelds and such, and I was interested, but, you know, as a family, we didn't really get the handheld ones. But it was at that point that I had been shown an interest, and what that had taught me to go back and experience A Link to the Past, the original Zelda game and such, with the collector's edition, and an Amber Relic. I can just continue talking at this point. It had taught me to go back into my past and experience past joys, because the past can teach you so much. And it was at that point that I was a teenager, and I was extremely, you know, accepting of the past, you know? There were things that we had done that, you know, I wasn't too proud of, but, you know, you can learn and move forward with your life in that sense. And then At that point, so I had waited for the new titles, which were Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. I never played Spirit Tracks, actually. That's one game I really want to go back and play, but Phantom Hourglass I had played. And that one didn't really have that much of an impact on me, as much as the bigger releases. When it came to Skyward Sword, which is the game we're playing now, this is my favorite game of all time, mainly because the premise behind Skyward Sword was released in 2011. Like, the game was released in 2011, I apologize. In November. Prior to that, September 14th, 2011, I started my relationship with the love of my life. And it was then that, you know, it was in September, I had a crush on her and all of that stuff. We had talked for many times. We'd become very good friends, and we pushed it forward. Now, I wasn't, like, infatuated from the start. It took quite a long time to really build up the relationship to where I believe it was strong. But in November, we both came out and said, I love you at the same time. And at the same time, Skyward Sword was teasing and showing a strong bond and relationship with Zelda and Link, which we're seeing in this game. And that just resonated with right home with me. And that's up to Skyward Sword. Recently, we got A Link Between Worlds. And with A Link Between Worlds, I was just starting college. And we were promised limitless adventure, because we could go any way we wanted to explore the dungeons. We had choice. A huge world. So much to do, and you could do it in any order. Demonstrated free will. Free choice. And with college, that's exactly what it is. You have so much to do and so much choice to make, and that's just how it feels. And I imagine, at the time of Zelda U's release, when it's an open world game with so much to see and do, I'll be an adult, full-fledged adult, out on my own. That's how the Legend of Zelda franchise has grown with me so far. It might be cheesy, and it is cheesy, but it's something that means a lot to me. That's why I'm doing this Let's Play and sharing this game. Not because it's also my favorite game of all time. And a fitting place to start my Let's Play channel. Again. But it's also the first in the timeline. I apologize. Anyway, now back on topic. There's a lot to see in this cabin. Dear Captain, thanks for everything. This is yours, the crew. I don't know why they did that. They wrote that in text, but they did. Over here we can see all of them just hanging out on the ship. This, I imagine, is the sand ship. Up there, we see the captain. We can see him up there as well, just hanging out. Over here, we have what is a reference to the Titanic on the sand ship. No, we're not going to have a Titanic-themed dungeon type thing, but there's a lot of little references and a lot of little things to see in this cabin. And you know, it's really cool. In the next episode of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, we're gonna make our way outside. And we're gonna go talk to Skipper, the captain. I leave you with this. Thank you, Fee. That was important. I'm gonna have chaotic reunion, and in the next episode of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, we're gonna do all that. I'll see you all then.